Alrighty everyone, welcome back. It is now the beginning of May of 2023, and there's a lot of things going on right now when it comes down to what's really brewing behind closed doors over at Disney and Lucasfilm between the upcoming Star Wars shows, the movies, the books, the comics, and the video games. Everything is really coming together to really make up this new Star Wars universe by George, John, Dave, and yes, even Tony Gilroy. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future Star Wars updates. I'm also on Twitter at Mike01. I thank you all so very much for the great and kind support. Now, let's get right into exactly what's going on with actor Mark Hamill. Now, we know that Mark Hamill is extremely close with Dave Filoni, and especially with Jon Favreau as well. They meet together at least once a month, going over the plans for Luke's future, what they're doing with the character, the overall timeline of Star Wars and where it's all heading. And Mark Hamill even talked about this before in the past, that he loves his son Nathan Hamill to talk things over with Jon and Dave, to really kind of do these crazy things with Star Wars, since Nathan Hamill is like the guy, like he's like the fan of the Star Wars franchise. He knows everything about everything when it comes to legends and the canon. It's crazy how Nathan Hamill knows this much, and what's good about that is it reflects on Mark, because he gets to see exactly what the fandom is like in his day-to-day life. So when we look at stuff around these lines, alright, when we know that Jon and Dave are gearing up towards doing great things for the franchise, one thing that Mark Hamill recently got Jon and Dave to pitch over to Disney is truly surprising that some fans may come to like or dislike. We're going to tap into this right now. Now, with actor Mark Hamill now working very close with Jon and Dave on the future of the brand with new Star Wars shows and movies, however, it's described that Mark Hamill recently did something substantial for the franchise by convincing Jon and Dave to bring up something special in a recent meeting that they held with Disney executives. As it turns out, the plan to reverse Luke's death that Jon and Dave pitched to Disney that has been in the talks lightly for a while now has advanced ahead due to Mark Hamill providing a clean idea on how to bring Luke back to life in a big way for the planned post-Episode 9 series for Disney+. Both Mark Hamill and his son Nathan are the ones that came up with this idea as they brought it up to Jon and Dave for Luke, and storyboards have already been completed to make this happen. Luke is prepared to use a power provided by the Wills, who are godlike beings. The plan is to bring Luke back to life temporarily, however, in a very impactful and meaningful way, as Jon and Dave want to give Luke the death that he deserved, that would make better sense to the audience. In the storyboards, Luke is set to utilize a force power from the netherworld of the Force, dubbed as Dimension Essence. Now, before I get to exactly what this force power basically is, you can see that Mark Hamill and his son really want to bring Luke back as the focus point for this post-Episode 9 show. You guys may be wondering, what in the world is this post-Episode 9 series? We've talked about this. It's going to take place 25 years after the events of Episode 9, specifically 10 years after the planned New Jedi Order movie that's featuring Daisy Ridley. It's going to focus on an established order, with Rey as one of the side or supporting characters. And basically what it's really going to come down to is that this is giving Jon and Dave their opportunity to essentially provide Luke the fate that he deserved. Jon Favreau never really agreed, and he came forward with this a couple of times, in the past couple of months, that he never really fully agreed with Rian Johnson's approach to how Luke Skywalker died by using a force projection technique. You guys may or may not know this, but in Legends, Luke used that same exact technique. It was a dark side power, however, and he used it with ease, with no struggle, no kind of, trouble doing that technique without losing his life force or even dying at that. He was able to perform that force power effortlessly. Now, one could argue maybe it's because Luke is up there in age and that's why it killed him. Who knows, right? But at the end of the day, it's Luke Skywalker, of all people. He should have been able to perform that force projection technique without dying. Some fans out there like that this power killed him off. I, however, don't. I never really agreed with it. I did support the idea of that power, but I really never liked the idea of it killing him off, and it wasn't really executed all that well, to be honest. basically, at the end of the day, what it comes down to is that Jon and Dave are accepting, Mark Hamill's idea moving ahead, and Disney is even accepting this. They're fully on board with this idea for the post-Episode 9 series. Moving on. The idea of this power that is being brainstormed and formed and accepted by Disney now is actually said to allow Luke's Force Ghost, his aka Spirit, to tap into the world between worlds and control one iteration of his past life while he was alive and well to cross into the present time temporarily. This force power that Disney views as a bit overboard is something that they also accept. The other option that Hamill brought up was for Luke's Force Ghost to just simply materialize as both flesh and blood, an original George Lucas idea from the early drafts of Return of the Jedi, where Obi-Wan Kenobi was supposed to perform the same exact power on the Endor celebration. But Disney is said to not be impressed by the latter. Jon and Dave are said to believe that Dimension Essence would make the most sense, as one spirit can temporarily control their past self, while they were actually alive and well to cross into another moment in time. This is something that Jon and Dave are also meeting up with Stephen Knight for, to tease in the upcoming new Jedi Order movie, and that the power can be used only once to regulate things. And you know what? That makes sense too, because if you could just keep using this permanently, every character can just become, their past selves alive and well. Now, to be honest, it does sound overboard, it sounds a little crazy, and it does sound like it may not fit the franchise well, but if it's executed perfectly, if it's regulated, if it's done in a certain way, it could work. Look, I give Mark Hamill an A for effort, and the fact that Disney is accepting this is a huge deal. And that just goes to show you that Jon and Dave love listening to Mark and his son, Nathan Hamill, because they're very well aware that the fandom is very torn on what happened to Luke at the end of the sequels. The biggest thing is, well, is this really going to be enough, even if they pull this off? Is it really going to turn the fans around and accepting that Luke is, using this power? And is it really going to make fans forget about what happened in The Last Jedi? I think it's a long shot, I think a lot of fans would prefer him to just come back to life permanently, but keep in mind, even George Lucas, in his original sequel trilogy treatments, he was going to kill off Luke Skywalker as well, but he was going to hold it off until the end of Episode 9, and then leaving everything up to Leia. That was actually George Lucas's treatment of his version of Episode 9, that he would die in the last film of the sequel trilogy. That makes more sense, by the way. You don't kill off Luke in the middle of a trilogy, especially after you hype up the character for 2+ years after The Force Awakens, only to not only mistreat the character, but to then just kill him off in the last act. That's why a lot of fans had a big problem. It wasn't necessarily just the fact that he was killed off. It was the waiting, it was the fact that Luke didn't do much in the movie for the most part, and it was also the fact that, a lot of fans expected more out of the character to face a villain of some kind. That's what they really wanted. And so when you look at stuff like that, this is basically Jon and Dave's shot to completing that. So overall, guys, fill me up below in the comments what you all have to say, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys next time.
Night to moon, we hear them moans again.